LSU boys, what a game!
Welcome to Maple Leafs Hot Stove Podcast, episode 102. I'm Nick Ashbourne, joined as always by Anthony Petrielli. We are coming to you after an uninspired bout of Toronto Maple Leafs hockey. You know, you could say that maybe fewer people are watching than usual. They're getting away with it more than they might be under different circumstances. The reality is it's a 2-2.
I watched. Did you watch?
I watched the
Good.
replay. I didn't watch live. 2-2 stretch, unimpressive opposition. It's a lot of the similar storylines to what we were discussing last week, but I know that when we concluded, we kind of said, okay, well, let's see what they can do in the next bout of games. Do things feel like they changed? And I think on the ice, broadly, they didn't. And, you know, we'll get into some of the reasons for that. But does the fact that the Leafs were unable to turn things around in any way, shape, or form make you feel any differently about their prognosis, Anthony? I know that you had some stats in the holster about where this team is at. I don't know if this is the time or that's for later in the episode, but yeah, like I said, not a lot has changed in a sense, but things not changing when change is required and hoped for is meaningful.
Yeah, so I saw someone say in the MLHS comments, like the concernometer is definitely going up heading into your next episode. And I was kind of like, you know what? I'm not actually sure I'm ready to crank up the concernometer just yet. And this could be my own delusion. There's definitely a lot of things I see that I don't like. There's definitely issues, so on and so forth. But I did want to flag a few stats for you because we love our stats, right, Nick?
Absolutely.
So right now, 5-on-5, Leafs are 11th in expected goals for percentage, in expected goals against per 60, which I don't love per 60 stats. I think like sometimes there's a lot of noise in there and it can muddy things, but I think early on you're trying to normalize, you know, what everyone's doing on a rate basis as opposed to a raw basis. So I'm using per 60. They're 8th in expected goals against per 60. So Nick, why are they struggling? Well, they're 25th in PDO and they're 31st in save percentage, all 5-on-5. And so I'm having a hard time looking and like totally freaking out. I can see the angst, you know, amongst the fan base. And I think in a weird way, as much as everyone is sitting here saying, oh, it's a good thing the Jays are in the World Series, like no one gives a crap about these guys right now. I do think there's a little bit of like, this is the bar. And I think people are watching the Jays in like a super emotional, charged up, you know, run and World Series and all this stuff. And then you're watching a pretty listless looking Leafs team in October hockey and you're comparing them to some degree. Like it's hard. Like it's you sit there and you listen to Ernie Clement and he's basically like quoting Herb Brooks. And then you watch the Leafs play like garbage and you're like, man, I hate these guys. Like it just like it feels so unlikable by comparison. And so I think people are there's a little bit of, you know, this thing going on where there's this like super exciting piece that's happening. And then there's this Leafs team that's trying to find their way. It's the first month of the season. They're a veteran team. They usually play like junk every October. There are some underlying stats that I think are problematic. I'm looking at a 31st save percentage and saying that's not real. Their goaltending's way better than that. I'm looking at 25th in PDO and just saying they're way more talented than that. Like those are very easy things to bounce back and basically fix a million issues. Just those two things in isolation. The power play is a joke right now. It was the same way last October. I understand that Marner's not here. I understand there's an adjustment. Marner was really good on the power play, but I'm sorry, if you can't figure out a power play with William Nylander, Auston Matthews on the flanks, JT in the bumper, Nyes in front, then that's a problem. Like I think the power play will figure itself out to some degree. So I don't know. I just have a hard time looking at everything just yet. We're not even technically in November as of this recording and saying, oh man, like blow it all up.
Yeah, well, I think that's a straw man. I don't think anyone is actually saying
I
blow it
think a
all up.
lot of people are. I'm
Who
hearing that a lot and seeing it in
who knows? I
comments.
don't think anyone who knows what they're talking about is saying blow it all up.
You, the
No,
listener, Nick is coming after you right this second.
this is a personal attack. No, I mean, like some of that, obviously, those are real numbers, and some of that I think is 100% true. Like, Caden Primo is not real. I get why they made that move. He was someone that they thought was kind of an interesting talent as opposed to getting kind of the lowest common denominator veteran goalie. They took a chance on somebody with maybe a higher ceiling and a lower floor. We're seeing that floor right now. And rough outing, obviously, against the Blue Jackets for him. I think nearly 5 goals saved below average in 3 games as a Maple Leaf. That's nasty stuff. Stolars, we have not seen, even close to the best of Stolars. And the fact that Joseph Woll is on the way back might be more important than kind of anything we discussed today in terms of the state of what's happening at the Maple Leafs and why they're disappointing and kind of floating around 500. I think Woll coming back will be huge. The hope is that he will, not only be a massive upgrade on Primo, that's kind of a given, but he will, keep Stolars better rested, maybe allow him to perform better. Like that is going to be huge. Having better goaltending is going to be huge, and they will have better goaltending. Like full stop. That's nice and easy.
Yeah, I can't imagine that their goaltending is going to be this bad all year. I would be stunned. And we talked about this when, Joseph Wall's absence was announced. He said, like, I think goaltending is their best position when they're healthy. Like it's a significant strength of their team. And, look, ultimately, Woll is back with the team right now. I'm sure he's going to take a couple of weeks to ramp up. I'm also hesitant to sit here and say like, hey, like this is the savior. Like I don't want to say that either. They're not sitting here thinking, oh, Patrick Waugh's coming back in to, get the Leafs back on track kind of thing. But he's really good. And the domino effect, right, of him, it's not just the Primo starts. I mean, they've won 2 out of the 3 Primo starts. That's objectively good. Like everything that's got into it has been objectively bad, but they've won this 2 out of 3, and I don't know if you could have hoped for much more beyond that. But I think the negative domino effect on Stolars has been significant, right? And then you get him frustrated, and he makes the comments, and he calls out. We had said it at the time. It's like you're calling out Nylander. He's 3rd in the league in points, and since you've called him out, you haven't been good. Like you've legitimately have not been good. The Joel Farabee goal was awful. That might have been that's got to be a
Yeah.
bottom 3 goal Stolars has let as a Leaf so far. Like couldn't think of many less like that or worse than that one. And so yeah, I'm kind of looking at it going like that seems unsustainable to me. The PDO being this bad seems unsustainable to me. The power play being this bad seems unsustainable to me. They are generating chances. We're starting to see their 5-on-5 play trend in a direction I would prefer to see it trend. Like they are flashing signs to me of controlling play better. I know they've had a pillow soft schedule to start, but early season can sometimes play tricks on you as well. That was like Tampa's off to a terrible start. Like you would have loved to have played Tampa this month. They also look terrible. They're not doing anything. You get, these teams that were on the cusp or, just outside the playoffs, like they're hyped in October. Detroit, they're hyped. Like I don't think Detroit's this good. I think that they're going to have a reckoning at some point here, but you caught them at a bit of a hot time. So as much as you look at the schedule and say it's soft, it's a hard league. You get, teams with things to prove or this, that, whatever. Like Columbus smoked them last year, basically this exact time. It was October 24th. They beat them 6-2. They crushed them. And it's like, we know how that played out by the time the year ended. The Leafs had 12 more points than them.
Yeah, and I think I'd bet on the Leafs over the Blue Jackets again. But that's part of being a professional team. Part of that is coaching, to be honest. Like the fact that the Leafs always seem to stumble out to these really uninspired starts in October. And that has been a very real pattern. Like, if you're a new coach who comes in and takes over this team in Berube, like, part of your shtick should be like, guys, let's get started here. Like, all the games count the same. And, for that pattern to continue is not encouraging. As you said, the schedule plays a big part in, the fact they've had an inability to bank points. Like, there's going to come, you talk about a reckoning, there's going to be a reckoning with the Maple Leaf schedule later on down the road. And it might be that they're playing better hockey at that time and that they rise to those challenges and that it doesn't end up being a huge issue. Like, my position here is not that the sky is falling for the Leafs. It's not that, this is a team that should be given up on or a team that should be looking to sell off parts. That's not how I feel about this group. How I do feel is that almost all of the reasons to be encouraged about the team are related to things we just sort of know will be better, as opposed to things that are actually looking like they're getting better. And I know, like you said, like, the Columbus game, for instance, the second half of that game, like, they gave up a lot of shitty goals on often dumb plays and rush plays and turnovers and bad goaltending, and it made it look worse than it was. And they did control a play in that game. Like, the one game, I still think of the Detroit loss as the one game where I felt like, oh, wow, they really controlled that game. Like, there hasn't been a lot of it. And I know there wasn't a ton of it last season in a sense.
all their game, like most of their games recently, like the Calgary game, I felt very much like they were in control for most of it. And it's just they're making terrible blunders right now.
Yeah.
That's also part of the factor, right? Where I'm sitting here going like, I don't think this is sustainable. I would be surprised if they just, constantly give up like grade A's for no reason for all 82 as a veteran team. Like I just
Yeah,
that
but
would be stunningly bad to me.
it would be better if you felt like, okay, Matthews is absolutely knocking on the door. Like, he's going to be the guy he was a couple years ago. And or you saw like Nic Roy and Dakota Joshua, and you said like, okay, that combo as the third line combo. And like with Cowan, like there's been some interesting shifts for that group.
They
But
are,
like,
if you look at them though, like they're great. Wall and Joshua together are getting like way more defensive usage, especially lately. They're grading out high in terms of shot share. They're grading out high in terms of scoring chances. Like they've been outscored 7-2, but they're winning basically everything else. And like you can see, which I know you're about to say, like you can see them putting together consistent shifts now where like they're grinding, they're cycling, they're putting in like offensive zone time. Like I kind of look at them and go, like I can see this. I look at that and say like if you're spending this much time in the offensive zone consistently, like you can't keep getting outscored like this. Like that's just not real. I don't know if Cowan is like the ultimate right winger for that spot. I'd like it for now, but by and large, I think the pairing is trending in the right direction.
yeah, I think the last couple of games have been good for them. But at the same time, that was the whole differentiating factor for the Leafs this season. In theory, was like the talent is spread in the forward group, and the third line is really going to be a factor. And I don't think broadly over the course of the season you'd really say that. And you can quibble with how Waugh's been used and like how little he's played at times, and like hasn't been put in a position to succeed. And we've talked about that as well. But there's not a lot sort of in their play. It's more, again, like kind of the statistical stuff that you mentioned. It's like this stuff should regress, like just because that's how that thing goes. But
Yeah.
when you're watching, I'm not like, okay, this team is on the verge of being really good and like really ready to play awesome teams and be in those games. And maybe they will. Like there have been times where they rise to the occasion and whatnot. But I mean, yeah, we always end up talking about Matthews because Matthews is at the center
He,
of what their ceiling is. But like that is a big
he,
part of the story too, is that like the kind of the assumption was, oh, he's healthy, he's back, it's gonna be good. And even kind of underlying stuff. Like I know there's, there'll be expected goals metrics that say that he's up there and he's taking a lot of shots, but I think it's pretty clear that that hasn't shown the way you'd want it to show yet. And you're more just saying he's going to be better, and he probably will. But you do want to see a little bit to start believing it. Like we're believing theories and we're believing abstractions, and that may be true, but it'd be more encouraging to see something a little bit more tangible from some of these guys.
No, I agree with you. I think of all the things where I'm sitting here going, it's too early, and I feel like they're fine and they're going to bounce back. Just like again, like they're not going to. I could be wrong. We could look at this by the trade deadline and say, "Holy cow! I guess they were just that bad in net." I don't think that they're going to be this bad in net. I really don't. I think Joseph Wall is going to come in at some point and give them a shot in the arm. I think Stolars is going to get on a schedule that's better for him. And again, this is why Stolars got paid the deal that he got paid. He knew. They knew. If we were looking at like a 50-plus game, really good starter, he would have made double what the Leafs paid him. Instead, he settled for it. Like everybody knows. It's not a secret. And so, amidst all of that, I do agree. Matthews is the one guy where I'm like, what's going on here? And it's weird because I've been getting a lot, just in like personal life or whatever, and you see it online too and whatnot, of people saying like, oh, like Matthews is the new whipping boy now, like he's gonna get run out of town, like things like that, like drumming up like some sort of narrative here on that. I'm like, there's no narrative, like there's no whipping boy, but objectively he has not been good, and objectively people are right to say he hasn't been good. Like there's no like, well, actually, he's playing pretty well, and everyone's just mean to him now because they don't have Marner to pick on. Like, straight up, like, he has not been good. Like, full stop,
Yeah,
period.
if
Like,
you say he's playing well, that's not based on anything. Like the fact is, since we last talked, he had a one-timer goal in the power play, which just make you think, why isn't this something that can be replicated? But that's a question that's been going on for years and years and years. But like the fact that that feels like news kind of just goes to show where we're at. We're like, oh shit, Matthews took a big shot and scored a goal. Like
yeah, like
that's different. That's new. That feels unique. Like that's kind of a crazy place to be honest.
I don't want to rehash the same things we talked about last week. I still maintain I think he's playing way too conservatively. I don't know about the fit with Berube. I think back to some of the best Leaf teams and how they performed. Even Matthews, like when did Matthews play well? Like when was Matthews peak Matthews? It was like Sheldon Keefe, like skill, transition hockey. Like that was peak like Matthews dominating and like lighting it up. And then Berube comes and it's let's play defense. And I know that he was hurt last year, but I don't think it was just him hurt. Like we said it a million times. Like hey, he played in the Four Nations. Like he played the whole second half of last year. Like once he came back, like he was back, he played in Four Nations, all this stuff. I'm sure he wasn't fully healthy. He didn't have like the zip on his shot necessarily that we become accustomed to, but by and large, he was there and it looked like what it looked like. And so far it looks like what it looks like. And going back to those old teams, it's like, you could see the like identity of the team kind of trickling from the coach and the best player, like most teams do. And then you kind of see this like Berube Matthews dynamic where Berube is basically just saying like go north and check hard and work hard. And Matthews kind of playing and looking a little bit aloof and casual. And the team overarching looking a little aloof and casual. And all of that, it's kind of like conflated within it. But yeah, I'm looking going, I don't know, like what are our expectations for Auston Matthews now? Like are our expectations off because he was such a good goal scorer for so long? Like it's almost unfair to like look and say like you got to be scoring 55 a year kind of thing, 50 a year, which is insanely hard to do. Only one guy hit 50 last year. Like Nylander was second in the league with 45 goals. Or is it like that's being a little bit too nice? Like he's also just got to play better. And then is there some factor of, he's playing with Bobby McMahon right now, who's pointless in 7. Like Bobby McMahon's like a 35-point player.
Matthews, McMahon, and Robertson is
Yeah.
literally a hilarious line. Like, I
Yeah.
know that they got the one goal out of that from Robertson, but I'm like, who's passing the puck on this line? Like, you have the three, like, arguably the three most shot happy guys on the entire team
Like,
just on the
will
same line.
either of Nic Robertson or Bobby McMahon hit 40 points ever in a regular season in their careers? Like McMahon's
McMahon could
29.
do it.
He's 29.
25,
Like,
15.
I don't know. Like I like Bobby McMahon. Like I think he's a 20 goal guy. I don't think he sees the ice well enough to like move it and make plays. I think he's just like a straight line, like has a good shot. I liked him with Nylander because like they're both kind of like mindless, you know, like Nylander just does kind of whatever he wants. And Bobby McMahon just gets the puck and shoots it. Like that's why I like the dynamic. But like Matthews is like thinking the game like multiple steps above, and then you're playing with with McMahon. And hey, I get it. I get why they did it. I like Nyes and Tavares. I would still do it like tomorrow if you ask me. It's not like, but I'm also saying that's going to impact Matthews and what we can expect from him. Like playing with Nic Robertson is going to impact what we can expect from him. And I get at the same time that, you know, if Nylander's in, Nylander's playing with Matthews, but you know, there's just a bit going on there where I feel like the lineup is closer to what it should. Like last week when we were recording, it was like, you know, we were giving Berube a hard time because I still think that he like screwed around the lineup for by and large the first 10 games of the year. But like we're starting to see it trend in a more logical direction, finally. And I do feel like they're starting to put a few things back together. But you know, the elephant in the room is Matthews. End of the day, it's like, yeah, could you guys control play reasonably better? They're starting to, and like they're starting to do a better job of like winning like chances, and then like eventually the goaltending will presumably smooth out. But all of this is pointless if Matthews isn't like a stud, and like not like really good, like a stud, as in what he's paid to do at his salary and what he's expected to be. Like not Dylan Larkin good. Like he's not even that right now. It's like, are you gonna be like you have to be closer to Nathan McKinnon than Dylan Larkin?
Yeah, and he's been given, you know, the opportunities to do it too. Like he has the offensive zone rate is up, like kind of what was promised during the offseason. Like it's up over 60% right now. And a lot of this underlying stuff too, like he's below 50% on some pretty unnotable possession metrics. Like we're talking expected goals, we're talking high danger chances, like even the stuff that in theory Matthews can tilt a little bit more than just raw shot totals because he's going to get you those great looks again theoretically. Like if anything, I'm more interested in those type of metrics with Matthews than I am with like a raw shot or shot attempt, because like it matters that
Yeah.
he's able to get those looks, and he's just not getting them right now. And like you're right, who he plays with does matter to an extent, but like how many times have we seen, you know,
No,
the
I know.
players in this seat, this type of player, whether you want to talk about this type of player in terms of being the franchise player, top five guy, what the salary is, like those number one with a bullet centers play with guys who are sort of bums all the time. And like that's a cheat code that teams can use to lengthen out their lineup. And I get that the Leafs haven't really done that because they had Marner, and Marner and Matthews had a lot of synergy in terms of the way they like to play the game. And but now that era is over, like you kind of want to use your capacity to have Matthews play with not necessarily the other best forwards on the team. And like, you know, it's interesting because I did figure Nyes would be sort of attached to his hip, and obviously that hasn't happened. Now they've split them up. But there, that should be interesting, open some doors, but nothing has quite worked yet. I mean, that I will say this has been pretty negative, especially from me. A mini
I-
positive to just throw in as a tangent is like Nyes finally had like the Nyes game, right? Like, you know, Domi was the one who got the headlines because he scores a
Nyes was
winner in
really good
that
against
game. But
Calgary.
that was like the Nyes game that you've been waiting for at long last. And again, you know, the point totals were there. We talked a little bit how some point totals could be fraudulent. Look at Nic Robertson's 2 point game against the Columbus Blue Jackets at the end there.
Electric.
But like that, like, you know, Nyes had some empty calories, and then he finally had a game where he was the one who really made the difference. And that's interesting. And him and Tavares, potentially without Nylander, and Michelli, there's been like they've been brutally outscored, but I think I looked at their on ice save percentage was something like 63% or something just truly outrageous. So I'm interested to see where that goes. But like even, we talk about the new guys like Waugh and Joshua, and Michelli is like there's evidence of them getting better. There's some good plays that you see, but like you do need some production out of this group. Like you need them to actually put the puck in the net. And, we got a little bit out from Joshua there, but those guys need to provide a layer of offense potentially, part of this, if Matthews is a 42 goal guy, not a 57 goal guy, which is a very real possibility. I don't know. Like, I generally don't know. Like, what would you, if I put an over under on Matthews goals this season at 47 and a half, like, what are you going to
I
take?
would go under. I thought you were going to say 42 and make it hard, or 41 and a
So,
half.
yeah. So you're thinking like mid 40s.
Yeah, I mean, which is still really good. Like that would have been second
Well,
in the
yeah.
league in goals last year. But that's what I mean. Like I don't know if the expectations are just a tad unrealistic. But then at the same time, like he set that bar. And then I think what's
He did it
frustrating.
for years. It's not like he
Oh
did it
yeah, he did his
once.
whole career up until
Yeah.
last year. But I think also what's frustrating is he looks pretty casual about it right now. You know, like if you think back to even the Phil Kessel days, and Phil would go on a slump every year. That was like the worst thing ever. But he would be losing his mind. Like he would have games. I think there was one against Carolina. That's the one I'm pretty sure I'm recalling where he had multiple grade A's. He just couldn't score. He was like in it. But he had like 11 shot attempts or something. He dominated the game. He did everything but score. And you're seeing this guy, he's losing it on the bench. He's breaking sticks. I'm not saying Matthews has to do those things. Like you don't have to see him like yell or like just smash a stick for no reason. I'm sure there's a team fine if you do. Although, I'm sure he'll sleep at night either way. But all that to say is at the times when he was slumping, or times you see a lot of guys slumping, you have games where you're like, this guy's gonna come out like just a junkyard dog, like he's gonna be just starving in an alleyway until he absolutely takes over. And you're seeing the exact opposite. Like you're not watching these games going like, man, like Matthews is playing poorly, and it's like, does he know? Like, has anyone told him? Like, has anyone sat there and said, like, hey, like, you're actually not like doing enough? Like, just want to let you know, like, you're not playing well. And like, maybe you should,
Tavares has been way more impactful
yeah, like
than Matthews.
maybe you should go out and have like a heartbeat about it. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe don't be content to be like Jordan Stahl. I don't know. Like those, and I think so. I think that's partly like I'm frustrated by it too. Like, I'm like everybody else. I'm watching, going like, does this guy know? Like, has someone told him? And then like I also sit there and go to, if I'm like Berube, I'm like why did he play almost 20 minutes last night against Columbus? I would have watched the game the way that after that puck went under his stick for the Columbus fourth goal, I would have said, take a seat. Like you're not even like, I'm just tired of watching it. Like he had no problem. We talked about this last week too, right? He's like, I'm impatient. Like, why'd you change the lines? Like, I'm impatient. I'm like, well, why don't you bench anybody? Like, why don't you bench a guy that matters? And to me, like, that's a good example of like an easy one. Like, I would have watched him and been like, you know what? Like, I'm just tired of watching you do nothing out here. And now you can't even handle a puck that goes right at your stick. And there's a 2-on-1. Take a seat. Like, do something to stoke the fire here and like piss someone off. And like, I don't know. That's the kind of stuff that it's like you're in that like quasi zone of like, look, I get it. It's October, you're a veteran, it's a long season. But then also a line of like, this is unacceptable. And you're not like showing me enough to the point where like I can forgive that.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. I mean, it's interesting to watch. You were talking about a little bit before that interplay between Matthews and Berube, and we don't really get a massive sort of public idea of that. Like, there's been so much written about him and Nylander, and like that
Yeah.
does seem like a very goofy twosome and like a funny dynamic that they have as two guys who like probably do not see the game the same way at all. And when you think about a coach and like you said, the best player, like there's a couple ways it can go, right? Like there's the coach and the best player are totally aligned and they share the same vision, the same identity. And, you can like or dislike Sheldon Keefe, but as you said, like the best hockey of Matthews' career to this point played under Keefe. It does seem like there was synergy there. And then there's a version where the best player and the coach don't necessarily see everything the same way, but the coach has a ton of cachet and like you might not like him, but you respect him. And you're like, okay, this is like he frustrates me, but like we're gonna win some shit and I get it. And like I know that Berube has a ring, but I don't think he's quite there. And I think that so you end up with like I think he is tune outable. Like when you
yeah.
like he takes that time out against the Blue Jacket, like I don't know.
Did you hear Matthews after the game?
Oh, I didn't see
No,
what he said.
I
After the game.
listened because I'm a sicko. I was dying of laughter. He called the timeout, right? Like you were gonna say, and then he's like clearly imploring them to like wake up because they started poorly. The only line of consequence the first 10 minutes of the game was the Nic Roy line, which is I always think of the classic Tortorella line about David Booth when they were in Vancouver together and they played some game. They lost. David Booth was sick though, and they asked him about him, and he was like, David Booth was great. That's great for David Booth, but that's terrible for the Vancouver Canucks. And that's how I felt about watching Nic Roy line. I was like, that's great for the Nic Roy line that they're good, but that's terrible for the Toronto Maple Leafs that that's their best line. And so anyways, Berube's yelling at the team to get going here. Like clearly, like you could visibly see him walking up and down the bench. And they asked Matthews about it. And he goes, no, like they called the timeout to check the goal, but like was Berube like also trying to like implore you guys to play better? And Matthews was like, no, they just want time to see the goal. And then they asked Berube about it, and he was like, yeah, like we got off to a slow start. Like I was trying to get these guys going. I'm like, how are the two leaders just completely off base here? Like they're just like, there's no synergy. Like, did you guys even chat? Like, when do you guys speak? How does it go? Like, I'd love to be a fly on that wall and see how it's going. But I died of laughter when I heard Matthews immediately just like, no, they just needed more time to check the goal. And Berube's like, yeah, he didn't say this, but basically it was like we were playing like shit and I was trying to get the guys going. That's your captain and your head coach.
And it's also like people can see what happened. Like if you're Matthew, there's no plausible deniability on that. It's clear what Berube was up to, but yeah, it does.
This isn't expansion Columbus Blue Jackets. Like they have cameras in the arena now. Like
yeah,
it's high def, buddy. Like
it is bizarre. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel very natural between those two. And it doesn't necessarily feel natural with Berube and, some of the personnel on the team, although the personnel does seem like it has been shifted more and more to his tastes. And that's good in that you want the personnel to fit the coach, but you also want the coach's vision to be good. And at this juncture in time, it's hard to. And again, I don't necessarily want to be someone who's like piling on Berube every week and is like, he's trash, he needs to be fine. Like it's too early for any of that stuff. There was a little bit of proof of concept for what he did last year, but I also think what he did last season does not put him above criticism this season. It's not like they went to the cup last year. You know what I mean? Like they reached a stage that they basically reached before. So I think there's still openness to skepticism here.
In this sort of disconnect, which I think we've talked a lot about so far this season, basically every episode, we're kind of like, hey, like I think his lineup is weird. And like, hey, I don't know if him and like the captain are on the same page and like things of this nature. And the thing I think of as part of that is I don't know if I think Berube's right at the end of the day, which I guess is part of like my like question and frustration. And by right, I mean like I don't know if Berube's preaching the things that are going to take them over the top. And so like you look at the disconnect and some of the line combos and like whatever, how like the style of play and like how things are going. And I'm like, well, it's not like I'm sitting here going, man, like why don't these guys listen to this guy? Like he knows what he's talking about. Kind of like I get it. like I don't know if I'm buying what he's selling either on certain things. And so, like that kind of contributes to it a little bit. And I know that could sound a little bit crazy. Someone's like, well, this guy like won a cup and, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, well, I don't know. Like I look at it and just say he's never come close to like reproduce. It's not like you looked at St. Louis after that and said like, man, like they were a wagon. And it was like it shades closer to caught lightning in a bottle than this guy consistently like gets it to where it needs to be to win, right? And
Oh,
like that
100%. Like he's eaten out on one of the great heaters of the last decade. Like, and I'm not saying that everything he's ever done since then has been shit, but like there's no Craig Berube's not coaching the Leafs if he hadn't won the cup, and he's not
no,
getting the respect he gets if he hadn't. And you can't take that away from him. And Auston Matthews hasn't won a cup. A lot of guys haven't won a cup,
yeah,
but he is, that was one of the more improbable runs we've seen in quite some time. And that's the big resume point. And the second point on the resume is a long way down from point number one.
the cup definitely gives them some cash, like some cachet. And I don't want to completely dismiss it. I think I don't agree when people are just like, yeah, who cares about this guy's cup? Like he won. Like that's like people spend their whole lives in that league trying to win and they don't do it. Right. Like in any pro sports league, like we're watching Don Mattingly right now with the Jays. Like how long has he been in the MLB in some association? Like 50 years? This is
Oh,
first
yeah.
time in the World Series. Not even like, like man, like he's close. Like this is first time he's even in the final round. Like that's how hard it is to win in pro sports. So I don't want to sit here and like completely shit on it. I look at it and say like, did you take the right takeaways? Because that team of yours, they dominated the second half of that year. Like you guys, like you look at every single metric, like that St. Louis team was just tilting teams. Like teams couldn't get the puck out of their end against St. Louis. And then you watched like the evolution of St. Louis from that cup forward and to what the Leafs were preaching. And I'm like, do you even know why you won? You guys were incredible team at just cycling and owning the puck, and your breakouts were sharp and all of these things. And the Leafs do nothing like it. It's like my takeaway from the Florida series was you got to break out better and you got to get the puck in Florida's end. And if you think that you can constantly just get tilted by these good teams and bank on like your goaltending and your defense and your structure in your own end, and then scoring on a couple counterattack goals or power play or whatever, it'll work in the regular season. It won't work against good teams over a 7-game series. And like some of those losses were insanely lopsided. It was just like the dam broke and they had no ability to push back. And I don't know if there's been enough made of like, keep saying, I said it all summer. It's like, how is nobody asking this team about their 5-on-5 play and like getting better? And like, do you think the transition defense is good enough? It's like, you watch the Cole Sillinger goal. It's like, why did Simon Benoit flip a puck up in the first place? Like, yes, he fanned on it. If, he didn't, then it would have went to center. But it's like, who cares? Even if you didn't fan on it, like that was a turnover regardless. It might not have been shoved down your throat for a goal immediately, but it's still crap play. You're basically handing the other team the puck. And that was a controlled breakout. It's like you're looking at the tying Calgary goal. It's like, why can't you break out? Like, why did Philip Myers want nothing to do with that puck? And why, like, nothing, right? Then you look at the goal Morgan Riley throws in front, the Ivan Provorov goal, the third goal. It's like, who are you giving that to? Right up the middle, crispy on Columbus tape. It's like all of these breakouts and transitions are just crazy, crazy poor. And I don't know if they're doing a ton to correct it. And if you remember, do you remember the very beginning of last year, like when they got Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Chris Tanev? I remember their breakouts, that first like 10 games, like their numbers were really good, like as a team. And like their breakouts with like Tanev and Ekman-Larsson were so crisp. Like those guys were moving the puck so clean. And then it was like as the season progressed, they just became crappier and crappier at moving the puck out. And I'm like, you're making them worse, man. It's like Tanev built his whole career off being a pass first D man. And now he can't do it.
Yeah, when you get so conservative breaking out, like you're almost building in structural turnovers. Like the whole point of controlling a game, not the whole point, but a big part of it is avoiding giving the puck to the other team. That is overly simplistic. But when you are so consistently chipping the puck out, like you said, it is basically a turnover. It is not a turnover to a dangerous area, and it can get you out of trouble in certain cases. But if you keep turning it over into a quote unquote safe area, eventually the other teams are going to turn that into something dangerous. Not every time, but enough times that you're going to get screwed over at a certain point. And this defense, I think it was interesting. You went into the season with the exact same defense group. Um, and everybody's just a year older, right? Like no one's getting better. There's the idea of Riley bouncing back, and he's shown some offensive life, not on the power play, but at 5-on-5 occasionally, and that's nice, that's good. But like you said, that was a huge problem against Florida. Their ability to handle the forecheck, get the puck out clean, transition the puck. Unless it was some kind of a pure counterattack. And they had success early in the series with like the raw counterattack, but sort of a measured, controlled attack up the ice with possession. Very difficult to do if your defense isn't leading the charge. And you have the same cast of characters. And I like Tanev is hurt now, obviously. I thought he was not off to an impressive start to the season. It's funny,
He
McCabe
was not.
had a rambunctious game against the Blue Jackets there. A little bit more life from him, but he'd been so good last season. I don't think it's been quite at the same level.
McCabe looks to me like the only guy right now that's trying to make things happen. Like he rushed it a few times against Columbus. I thought he made a nice play on the Sammy Blaze goal. He's pushing it more than he normally would, because I think he's looking around going like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. And he's trying to lead a little bit more by example. Like obviously you're referencing the hit and the fight against Buffalo. You can see him, at least I can, like trying to push things a little bit more. And he's a vet, and he's a pretty honest guy, and I think he's looking around going like, man, like we got to get going here. And he's at least trying. Like he hasn't been great, but I see what he's trying to do at least.
For sure. Like as you mentioned, he is there. You can see intent with him, but partly just because Tanev has not been as strong, and like there's just that pairing has not had the same impact. I think there's a pretty limited ceiling for Benoit and Ekman Larson as a pair, even though Ekman Larson obviously has his big moments. Carlo has been, not an epic tragedy, but also a disappointment too. And so, like, that's a big part of why you can find yourself questioning the ceiling of this team a little bit, is because the defense does seem to be, I don't know, quarter step, half step worse than last season. And there isn't really someone coming around the corner who seems like they're going to change that. And that was a big part of, again, how they fell out of the playoffs last season. So like you're wanting Matthews to reach another level. You're waiting for the new guys to acclimatize and provide some depth offense, which they haven't done yet. And you're seeing a defense core that just doesn't quite have the same as they had last year. And to be honest, last year it wasn't like it was the best defense group in the league by any means. It was, solid but unspectacular. And all these factors are coming together, and things are going to be better. As we referenced, the goaltending is going to play a big difference. The power play is going to be better. Things are going to look better in certain areas, but there are these things that are underlying it. And yeah, for me, it is Matthews, and it's the defense, because I do think those third line guys, the new guys, are going to come around to some degree. I've largely liked, I have a soft spot for Michelli, arguably more than he actually warrants, but I still believe in Waugh. I think
Nick loves
Joshua's
a soft, small skill guy. Like if he was Russian, he'd hit your bingo card. He'd be like,
Oh,
perfect. I love this
absolutely.
guy.
No, yeah, he's just fun and he's creative, and I like watching some of that with a
I
little
don't
bit
mind
less of
Michelli.
like the Domi, like a little bit less dumb bullshit than Domi has going on.
I like taking the gamble on Michelli. I liked it in the summer. I still like it. Like he's been a really productive player amongst his draft class. I actually think his point totals are a little unkind to him. Like he's created a ton of really good looks for guys at times, and guys haven't cashed them. Like when you're the nature of being a playmaker is that you need someone to actually score the goals at some point. It can't be you. Um, so yeah, I kind of look at him and say, like, I looking at his point totals being like, what does he have? 4 points in
4
11
points, I
games?
think.
And I was
Yeah, I
looking, I
mean,
was
he
like,
should probably have like 6
six or
assists, not
seven.
2, you
Yeah, like
know?
he should have like 6 or 7 points. He's been robbed backdoor a few times too, hit a few bars. It was like, I looked at it, I was like, man, like that kind of sucks. Like he should be a little bit more productive than he has been. It just, he's again, like this is kind of where I go back to the lineup shuffle. I'm like, you need to build these guys up. Like there's a reason you got all these guys for the prices that you did. They had bad years. And so when that happens, like there's a confidence issue. You need to kind of like get them going a little bit and build up, rebuild their game, so to speak. Like Michelle's never been playing the playoffs. Like you kind of look at him and be like, look, like everything that you've done so far, you need to forget because like we're gonna teach you how to play hockey. And instead, it was like, actually, you're gonna go right up to the top line. Like I know you're not ready for this, but here you go. And so,
But
yeah,
Scotland's coming back, so
the whole lineup is gonna be
the
finally
whole
falling into
structure.
place. I actually am looking forward to Scott Laughton getting back. Like it's not a knock on Laughton.
No,
I'm
he's a good, valuable player.
yeah, like I miss Laughton. I think he's a bit of a glue guy. I think he has a little bit of jam. I hope he can kind of bridge the gap of some of the, I don't know if discombobulation is a word, but I'm saying it like that we're seeing. Like I hope he can kind of smooth it out and be a bit of a presence out there
And
and also chip
get
in some
Domi to a
offense.
goddamn wing. I know that this is
Yeah.
like a good moment for Domi because he had his 2-goal game, but like whenever you have a Domi center line, like none of them have really worked or made sense.
I still think Domi should play with Matthews. I
Yeah.
don't think Robertson or McMahon will ever outproduce Domi's peak. And like that, I mean, that's an almost certainty. Like Domi had like a 72-point season. But even like if you look at it in its entirety, like Domi's like under 50 points away from 500 in the league. You can say whatever you
Yeah, it's
want
a
about him.
real
Like
total. Like that's a legit career.
yeah, like he frustrates me to no end, like to no end. But he can at least chip in some offense. Like he's not gonna go 7 games, I don't think, beside Matthews without a point, the way McMahon
No,
has.
because that's the role for him is winger on a line that gets offensive opportunities with guys who can actually bury. And that's not a role he's played for any length of time this season, but like that is what he should function as in the NHL. That is what his skill set warrants. And that is why you extend him for a long period of time. I mean, I'm not saying that's a good contract and that they would want to sign that contract again, but that is why they did it in the first place.
Yeah, they shouldn't have done that, but that's a
No.
that's a different story. But all that to say is I still think he could go up there and give them more than like what they've received so far. Unless you're like gun ho on keeping Nylander with Matthews, in which case it probably wouldn't make sense to have Nylander Matthews. It would probably make my eyes bleed a little bit watching them. I don't know, Matthews be like, I guess I can't even get into the offensive zone anymore. I got to be F3 and cover high, and watching Nylander and Domi just like circle the zone with each other. It'd be a tough watch. So I don't know. They got to kind of settle in a little bit here and figure out what's going on. But I'm not overarching. The concernometer's still relatively at a 6 for me. Like it's not.
I
American
said six
Thanksgiving would be the first time I'd be like, uh-oh.
I said 6.5 last time. I'm gonna cop out and I'll go up to 6.75 because I feel like when you go to 7, that has a different connotation. I don't think things are super, super, super serious just yet, but at the same time, yeah, when you're talking about what is the ceiling for this group, like what can this team really accomplish? Um, as much as the Atlantic is fairly open in the early going, that conversation doesn't get particularly exciting until Matthews does. So, like, I think now we can talk about, hey, they're going to fix up these things, and that's going to get them from 500 team to solid playoff team. Right now, the smart money is that this team is going to be in the playoffs in one way or another. But if you're going to have a conversation of beyond, can you make it into the playoffs? What are you going to do? Are you going to do anything? Like, They haven't done anything yet this season that makes me feel good about that aspect. Can't be ruled out. Can't be ruled out just yet, but it's that part of it. I don't feel the floor falling out the bottom. I think I said this to you before we started recording. I don't feel the floor falling out the bottom of this team. I think the way some people do, I do feel the ceiling inching down a little bit as I watch them.
Here's where I'm at on the playoff talk. I think it's too early to be talking about playoffs and what they might do in them because the roster will look different. Like they're gonna have, if this is the roster going into the playoffs, then there's not much to talk about. Maybe they get a first round opponent that fits them stylistically and they beat them and then they lose in the second round. Like that's pretty much it. If this is the lineup, I would have to think that the lineup is gonna, like, something is gonna shake loose. Like something is gonna have to happen. So I find it hard to talk too much about playoffs just yet. Really, I just kind of look at it and say, like, they have to get their own backyard in order in the first place. And right now I look at like every single lineup that they have and I'm like, do you look at a single line that they're currently running and say, like, that's a fine line, like they can keep it together this year for the playoffs?
Closest thing would be Nyes, Tavares, Michelli, but that's optimistic on Michelli.
Like, you think Nyes isn't playing with Matthews come playoff time?
I think it could work this way, but no, the smart money is on Matthews and Nyes being together, like longer term.
Like
sure. And JT and Nylander being back together. Like that's what they know. That's what they trust.
Yeah. Like that's how out of, it's not like you're like, I'll see people say like, oh, like they just need like a right winger to play with Matthews and Nyes. And it's like, well, Nyes isn't even playing with Matthews right now. And then it'll be like, oh, like they need like a left winger to play with Matthews and Nylander. It's like, well, is that going to be the combo moving forward? So all that to say is, like, I'm looking at going like, you don't even have your own lines like roughly in order. Like this time last year, you could legitimately have been like Nyes, Matthews, and Marner are the top line, and Tavares, Nylander the second line, and then the rest of it for sure you could say up in the air, which it was, and it got changed significantly. But there was 5 out of 6 were locked in and basically did not change. Right now, you're looking at it going, I couldn't tell you a single thing about this lineup other than Matthews, Tavares, Waugh. In all likelihood, I'm actually kind of making an assumption on Waugh as 3C because like Lawton could come back and play really well. So like the most locked in thing right now is what, like Joshua Waugh at best, maybe Lawton and Lorentz. Like that's the most locked in thing. You could flip
those someday, like, you know, but that's not guaranteed.
Yeah, like so. Of all talk of playoffs, I'm like, well, actually, you need to kind of sort out right now, like what the combinations are and like what you really believe in. Because right now you don't believe in anything. Everything's constantly changing. You have no clue. And eventually, like the lineup is going to change one way or the other. It's like, watch Sammy Blais last night. I'm like, he should play again. Like that was a fine debut. At least he threw some hits. I know he scored and he got the assist, but like I actually just like the physicality more. At least he had a presence out there and a bit of a pulse. So, you know, like there's so much of it that's like in flux for me that it's hard to talk about playoffs. I'm like, well, I couldn't even tell you what their lineup should be next week.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And the playoffs is more of a throwaway line. It's not a massive conversation starter because it is early. We are still recording here in October. And as you said, there's a lot that's in flux. I'm sure we're going to get there. We're going to have a conversation about who they add, who do they have to trade, the constant Leaf conversation of do they actually have anyone to trade or not. That's all going to be very interesting later in the year. But for now...
The other thing I just wanted to flag quickly on that note, just speaking of like trades and player movement, is the Martin Necas signing.
Oh yeah,
because he was primed to be one of the best free agents available. I would have been in on him because he's young, like he's 26. You know, you're adding a guy who I think is a point per game winger with speed. He's a righty. Like the fit would have been logical, obviously. Now he's not going to hit the market, so you're already seeing the market dwindle down significantly. It's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. Obviously, McDavid signed. Eichel signed. It feels like Kempe will sign eventually. I don't know about Tuck. That one would be kind of interesting. Obviously, I would be all in on Tuck if he were to make the market. That's a logical fit. for any number of reasons, which we're not going to like dive deep into right now. But all that to say is, man, if you think you're going to go through free agency because of cap space now and get better, you're you're really in tough. Like you might get the once a generation John Tavares who wants to come home, or the once generation hometown guy who just wants to leave and go to Vegas kind of situation. But like you're really in tough, right? Like we saw it for a while with like, Brad Richards hitting free agency and like certain guys, but it's free agency is it's changing. And I don't know, as much as everyone's like, perfect, you have money now and like all these things, I kind of look and say like, how are you drafting and developing?
Yeah, you have money now, but so does everyone else. And that means they have the money to extend their dudes. Like part of the reason why people get to free agency is because their own teams end up in situations where they don't feel like they're able to extend them. Now we're seeing guys go for pretty big numbers because the teams can afford to do that. And, like a couple of guys squirt out and they make it to free agency, but then, you're competing with all the other teams who are like, oh shit, here's the one guy who's really good who made it. And as you said, if you're gonna be good longer term, it can't just be, oh, we have the ability to offer you a free agent contract. Then you're gonna end up with a lot of dudes in their 30s. You're gonna have a lot of old Leafs teams. And at a certain point, you're gonna need a new core. Not today, not tomorrow, but these guys that the Leafs have built around for a decade, not gonna be spring chickens forever.
I think the biggest value that the cap space might be bringing about is the ability to gamble on a contract, right? A player kind of goes somewhere, he struggles, it's not a fit, whatever the case is. Like, it's like I look at like Pierre-Luc Dubois in Washington, right? They didn't spend like a million things to get him. And you kind of look and say, like, you almost have to wait in the weeds for this kind of like guy that for whatever reason fell out of favor and is already signed, or is like a JJ Paterka. It's like, nah, I'm not playing here, like I hate this place. Like, and you have the ability to like take on money and like pay a guy or like convince a guy to force his way to you, which is definitely a thing. It's like we just saw Mason Marchment in Seattle, like a much lesser player, but like Mason Marchment didn't want to come here in the summer. And like I watched him, I was like, man, like I wish they got Mason Marchment over the anyone that they added this offseason. Like he would have been a good fit here. Like there's a reason like why everybody liked him. Like he's a good player. And so you kind of like look and say, I don't know if free agency is going to be what you think it is. Like you're probably going to have to like roll the dice on some guy who for whatever reason is just like, I'm out from whatever he's playing. It's like you look in the past like year, it's like how many guys have gone? It's like JT Miller. It's like they couldn't get him out of there fast enough, right? I mentioned Dubois. It's like you go through kind of like it's like players like that are not, maybe Noah Dobson would be another one. It's like I'm not staying here, and like you need the cap space to kind of facilitate those moves, but you also need the assets.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that's not just money. Like when you get
Yeah.
players of that caliber, you got to have prospects, you
Yeah.
got to have draft picks to make that work.
So if we're talking like cap space and improving your team through it, I'm now kind of like shifting to more, well, it's actually probably down that route.
I
Then it's
just
going to
think
end up
that
being free agency.
there was so little cap space in this town for so long that people see it and they see the
Shock
appeal
and
of
awe.
it. They've been wandering through the desert and they just want a nice canteen. Canteen? That's the wrong word. You know what I'm talking about. The
Hey, it's fun to
water
speculate, but
skin.
now you're looking being like, hey, I hope Nick Schmaltz makes free agency. He's having a great year in Utah. And it's like, well, okay, but like, you know, could that's
Maybe.
yeah, I mean that helps you because you have Matthews and Nylander locked in, provided Matthews, figures it out. But it's not like you're signing Nick Schmaltz being like lead our team, or Alex Tuck being like lead our team. Like you're gonna have to develop that core and that base and then like add to it and supplement it through free agency. Whereas via trade, like you could actually, You're going to have to be a horse trader, but there's at least the possibility, especially as teams hit their internal caps, right? Moving forward. Like that's more of how I look at the league now. It's like teams are going to hit their internal caps and you're going to come in there as a big money team and you have to be ruthless. It's like, look, like that guy's not staying. You can't afford him. We can. He wants to come to a real market. Like you're playing it that way. Like you have to Yankees it. You have to even Blue Jays. Blue Jays are 5th in the league in payroll. Like,
yeah, but the
there's no
Leafs aren't
cap at
the only
all.
team who can do that. Like
Yeah,
they're
for
going to
sure.
be most teams will be able to spend to the cap.
I don't know that right now. Yeah,
Most
over the next couple of years, I don't know if that's true.
I don't know. I don't know what the number will be, but it's not like just the Leafs. They're not going to be
No,
in
it's definitely
some
not going to
unique
be.
category.
I think I would be surprised if like over a third of the league would be at the cap in like 2 years' time.
That'll be interesting. Yeah, I haven't sort of sat down and kind of thought about which markets would and wouldn't, but I mean, the fewer it is, the better position the Leafs are in.
You got to think like not only are these teams poor, but they're not going to want to do it unless they think that they're unreal. Like Florida's fine to do it now because they're winning cups. But I don't know if Florida's going to be down to do it if once they get old, if they're like we're not winning anymore, like this isn't worth us maintaining this salary. You know what I mean? Like it'll shift pretty like whereas the Leafs is going to be like if you don't
If you don't
if
spend
you don't spend to
every
the cap,
dollar,
yeah, people are going to lose their minds. So, and the Leafs make more money than anybody else. So they can also sit there and be like, yeah, like let's be like semi-competitive and spend to the cap. So it's an interesting kind of line. Like I think there's certain teams like the Rangers will spend, right? But then I think there'll be like a lot of minutes. Like, do you think Ottawa's spending to the cap if they suck?
oh, no.
Of course not, right? It's like you look at most of the teams out west, like Edmonton is right now because they have McDavid. But if the McDavid leaves in a few years kind of thing and like the team starts going downhill, they're not spending the cap. Vancouver's not going to spend to the cap. They don't even have a practice arena. It's like you go through it. It's like Seattle
It'll
going to
be
keep doing this?
interesting to see how, like, because that could create sort of a nasty cycle where you fall out of contention and then you stop spending and then you're less likely to be in contention. And like, I know that you can kind of get the young
Yeah.
players and in theory know when you're ready to make a jump and start spending again, but it's not always quite as easy as that. And sometimes it pays to be a sort of baseline level of competence to build along as opposed to just being in this boom bust cycle.
Yeah, you would basically hope that like you rebuild it like the 2005 Buffalo Sabres when they had like Danny Briere and like Chris Drury and like Brian Campbell and they were unreal. But then back then when they couldn't afford to pay those guys and the Thomas Vanek offer sheet like ruined them, you would just hope now with the cap up they'd be like, now we can pay everyone. Right? Like that's basically the difference between like now and like 20 years ago. It's like if you build it, you should be able to just afford everyone. The way Florida's paying everybody now. The way Tampa wishes 5 years ago they could have paid everybody. Right? So I think for like the good teams, if they're seeing a profit, they're winning, like the good times are flowing, they'll probably find a way more often than not. But like I think a lot of these teams are not gonna. I'll be surprised. Like it's like, do you think Philly's spending the cap if they're not good? I don't. You think Pittsburgh is? I don't. The
I
Islanders?
think of those as good hockey markets that will pay for it, but
If they're
again,
winning, I think they will. I don't think if they're not, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna have to go there and probably convince the owner and be like, give us some money, like we got to get better. And then you
we
better
got to
get better.
build around Mitchkov here. You know,
Yeah.
we're on to something. He's playing 13 minutes a night.
So it's yeah, just like the landscape of the league, it's always worth monitoring. You're looking, saying like this free agent class is gonna suck again. Last year's it sucked. And like you look at the Leafs bets and like other than the fact that it cost some late picks, it's like, well, those guys compared to most of the guys you could have signed in free agency, it's basically like pick your poison. And like it's like this middle ground of like I hope I hit on a couple things here or there. Otherwise, like you got to load up for trades and take advantage of teams in vulnerable positions.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the next couple of years, whether it truly is to the Leafs' advantage as much as maybe it could be. Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how teams react, but it is time for us to wrap here. We really appreciate everybody who listens in. We appreciate more when you leave ratings, reviews, things of that nature. we'll be back potentially updating the concernometer depending on how the week goes when we speak to you again for next week's podcast.